Nkechi screamed. Not the kind of scream people make when they see a rat. Not the kind of scream people make when they step on a Lego block. This was the kind of scream that could wake up the entire neighborhood. The kind of scream that made dogs bark. The kind of scream that made babies stop crying because even them, they were shocked. Ah! Doors flew open across the Face Me I Face You compound in Ajegunle, Lagos. Women rushed outside trying wrappers around their waists. Men stumbled out, rubbing sleep from their eyes. Children peeped through the windows. What happened? Who died? Is it an armed robber? Has NEPA brought light? People gathered around Nkechi's room. Nkechi stood in front of her mirror. Her eyes were wide open. Her hands trembled. Sweat covered her forehead. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again. Nothing. Again. Nothing. Her tongue was gone. Gone. Vanished. Disappeared as if somebody had borrowed it and forgotten to return it. The same tongue that had talked from January to December. The same tongue that had worked overtime every day. The same tongue that could discuss 20 people's business before breakfast. Gone. Nkechi began crying. The crowd outside became confused. What happened? Why is she pointing inside? Has she seen a ghost? Nobody knew. But one old woman standing quietly at the back of the crowd shook her head slowly. The old woman looked at Nkechi. Then she whispered something that shocked everyone that was standing around them. Sometimes, the mouth that talks too much finally meets its match. Nkechi froze. The moment she heard that voice, a terrifying memory rushed back into her mind. A memory from 3 days earlier. The day everything started. The day she gossiped about the wrong person. And that day began like every other day in Ajegunle, with Nkechi searching for somebody else's business. If gossip were Olympic sport, Nkechi would have won medal, gold, silver, bronze, and still asked for an extra medal to be added. At 24 years, Nkechi was one of the most beautiful girls in the neighborhood. She had smooth caramel skin, bright eyes, long hair, and a smile capable of stopping traffic. But unfortunately, her mouth that refused to rest. Even when her body was sleeping, people suspected her mouth was still discussing somebody's matter in a dream. Nkechi didn't just love gossip. Gossip loved her back. Every morning she woke up before the rosters, not to pray, not to exercise, not to hustle. No, she woke up to collect information. By 6 o'clock, she had already knew who quarreled with their husband, who borrowed money, who cooked burnt rice, who received a mysterious visitor, who brought a new iPhone, who wore fake hair, who was pretending to be rich. Nkechi knew everything, or at least she thought she did. Her best friend, Ada, often warned her, Nkechi, one day this gossip will put you inside trouble. Nkechi laughed. What trouble? Ada sighed. Mind your business. Nkechi nearly choked from laughter. My business is everybody's business now. Ada slapped her forehead. You see your problem? What problem? Your mouth, Nkechi. My mouth is beautiful. No. Ada pointed dramatically. That mouth is a public transport system. Everybody enters and everybody exists. Nkechi laughed so hard that she almost fell off her chair. But Ada wasn't joking. People had started avoiding Nkechi. If they saw her coming from one direction, they crossed the road. If she entered a shop, conversation ended immediately. If she arrived at a gathering, secrets packed their bags and left because whatever Nkechi entered and whatever she hears would travel soon across the entire Lagos and not in its original form. By the time Nkechi finished retelling the story, it had grown legs, wings, and sometimes even tail. One afternoon, she saw a man carrying a medicine she had bought for his mother. By evening, Nkechi had transformed the story. Did you hear? Hear what? That man is secretly sick. Really? Very serious. And how do you know Nkechi? Ada once asked. I saw a medicine. The next day, the poor man spent hours convincing people he wasn't dying. Nkechi felt no guilt. In fact, she felt proud. To her, gossip was entertainment, a public service, a gift, a talent, a ministry, a career, yani everything. Then something happened. A handsome young man named Emeka moved into the compound, and suddenly Nkechi forgot everybody else's business because she wanted Emeka's business. Emeka was tall, dark, handsome, hardworking, the kind of a man that made women suddenly remember they needed to fetch water from the tap whenever he walked past. The moment Nkechi saw him, her heart performed gymnastic. Jesus! Ada looked at her. What now? Have you seen the new tenant? Yes, he is handsome. Okay, he is very handsome. Okay. He smiled at me. Ada rolled her eyes. He smiles at everybody, Nkechi. Nkechi refused to listen. From that day, she began creating reasons to pass by Emeka's room. Morning, afternoon, evening, night. Sometimes she passed so many times that people thought she had forgotten where she lived. Amazingly, Emeka liked her too. Soon, they started talking, then walking together, then spending time together. For the first time in years, Nkechi seemed happy, very happy. People thought love had finally cured her gossip habit. People were wrong, very wrong, because even while falling in love, Nkechi continued discussing everybody's matter. One evening, Emeka sat beside her. Nkechi, yes, I want to ask you something. She smiled. What is it? Why do you gossip so much? Nkechi laughed. Who told you I gossip? Emeka stared at her. The entire compound. She laughed again. People exaggerate. Nkechi, if we get serious, I need to know I can trust you. She smiled. Of course. But deep inside, she wasn't listening. Because Emeka spoke, she was watching two women arguing across the compound. Already her brain was preparing tomorrow's discussion. And that would become the beginning of her downfall. Because one day, Nkechi would overhear a conversation she was never meant to hear. A conversation involving a mysterious old woman, a secret, and a warning that would change her life forever. 3 days before her tongue disappeared, Nkechi was returning home from the market. The sun was setting. The children were playing football in the dusty streets. Women sat outside their house peeling vegetables. Vendors shouted their final prices. Everything looked normal until Nkechi noticed something strange. An old woman dressed in pure white was standing beneath a large almond tree near the end of the street. Nobody seemed to notice her. Not the children, not the traders, nobody. The woman stood perfectly still. Her silver hair sparkled in the evening light. Curiosity immediately grabbed Nkechi by the throat. She moved closer. The old woman was speaking quietly to another woman. Nkechi hid behind a kiosk, then behind a wheelbarrow, then behind a stack of empty crates. And by this point, she looked less like a human being and more like a badly trained spy. The old woman said softly, "Remember, some gifts are meant to stay hidden." The other woman nodded. "I understand." Nkechi's eyes widened. A secret? A hidden gift? That was enough information for her imagination to start running a marathon. Before she had another word, she rushed away. By the time she reached home, the story had already changed. The next morning, she began spreading it. "Did you hear?" "Hear what?" "That strange old woman near the almond tree." "What about her?" "She's a witch." People gasped. "Really?" "I heard her talking about hidden powers." Ah! By afternoon, the story had grown. By evening, it had become even bigger. Some people were saying that the old woman could turn into a bird. Others said she borrowed charms at midnight. Someone even claimed she was over 200 years old. Nobody knew the story and where it came from, except Nkechi, and she was enjoying every second of it until the next day. That afternoon, while returning from the communal tap, Nkechi saw the old woman again. This time, the woman was waiting for her, specifically for her, waiting. As she already knew everything Nkechi had spoke about her. Nkechi stopped walking. The old woman smiled. Not an angry smile, not a friendly smile. A smile that made her hairs on Nkechi's neck stand up. "Nkechi." A baguette nearly fell. "How do you know my name?" The old woman chuckled. "In this world, some people listen too much." Nkechi forced a smile. "I don't understand." The woman stepped closer. "And some people talk too much." The smile disappeared. "If you continue carrying stories that do not belong to you, one day your mouth will carry a burden it cannot bear." For the first time in years, Nkechi was speechless. The old woman turned and walked away. Within seconds, she vanished into the crowd, gone, as if she had never been there before. That night, Ada begged her, "Please, leave that woman alone." Oh. But Nkechi laughed. "What can she do?" Ada shook her head. "One day, your mouth will finally meet somebody stronger than it." Unfortunately, that day came faster than anyone expected. 2 days later, disaster arrived, and it arrived wearing high heels. A rich woman named Madame Blessing came visiting the compound. She was elegant, successful, and respected. The type of woman who smelled expensive even from a distance. The moment she arrived, everybody greeted her. Everybody except Nkechi. Nkechi was too busy investigating. When Madame Blessing entered one of the rooms carrying a large envelope, Nkechi immediately became suspicious. What is inside? Why is she here? Who is she visiting? Question filled her head. By evening, she had invented answers. The next morning, she told half the neighborhood that Madam Blessing was secretly paying somebody to hide a scandal. The rumor spread like wildfire, and within hours, it reached the markets, the shops, church members, even Madam Blessing's business partner. The damage was immediate. People began talking, people began judging, and people began laughing. And eventually, the rumor reached Madam Blessings herself. She was furious. The truth. The envelope contained money for a widow whose husband had recently died. It was charity and nothing more. Nkechi's lie had turned kindness into a scandal. That evening, Emeka came looking for her. His face was serious, very serious. Nkechi, what? Was it you? She looked away. Was what me? The rumor? Silence. Nkechi. Silence again. Emeka sighed. I defended you. Her stomach tightened. But today, I discovered the truth. He shook his head sadly. I don't know if I can trust someone who enjoys hurting people. Those words hit her harder than a slap. Before she could reply, he walked away. And for the first time, Nkechi felt guilty. Really guilty. Not the fake guilt that disappears after 5 minutes. Real guilt. The type that sits in your chest and refuses to leave. But unfortunately, the lesson had not yet finished. That night, she went to bed crying. Around midnight, a strange wind entered her room. The curtains began moving. The air grew cold. And then she heard a voice, a familiar voice, the old woman. If your mouth refuses to rest, the voice echoed, then your mouth shall rest. Nkechi jumped awake. Her heart pounded. The room was empty. No old woman, no wind, nothing. She convinced herself that it was only a dream. Then morning came, and her scream woke the entire neighborhood because her tongue was gone. Not physically, but every time she tried to speak, no word came out. Nothing. Not even a sound. The greatest talker in Ajegunle had become silent. People rushed to the hostel. Doctors examined her. Nothing was wrong. They gave medicine. Nothing changed. Pastors prayed. Nothing changed. Traditional healers tried their luck, but nothing changed. And for 7 days, Nkechi could not speak. 7 whole days. And during those 7 days, something remarkable happened. She started listening, really listening. She heard how her gossip had hurt people badly. She watched neighbors avoid her room. She saw the sadness she had caused. She discovered stories she had spread were often completely wrong. And for the first time in her life, she realized something. Every person was carrying a battle she knew nothing about. And the woman she mocked for being unmarried was secretly caring for 3 younger siblings. The man she called lazy had been searching for work for months, and the widow she gossiped about cried herself to sleep every night, and little by little, shame filled her heart. One evening, she sat outside crying, and then she saw the old woman again, standing beneath the almond tree, the same place where everything began. Nkechi ran to her, dropped to her knees, and began crying. The old woman looked at her quietly, and for the first time, Nkechi wasn't trying to explain herself. She was trying to defend herself. Simply cried. The woman nodded. At last, she spoke. Now you understand. Nkechi nodded. Tears streamed down her face. Words are seeds. the woman continued. And when planted carelessly, they grow into pain. The woman touched her forehead gently. Go home. Speak kindness. Speak truth. Or speak nothing at all. The moment her hand touched Nkechi, something changed. A warmth spread through her body, and the next morning she woke up, opened her mouth, and whispered, "Thank you." Her voice had returned. Months later, people noticed something unusual. Nkechi had changed completely. When people brought gossip to her, she smiled and walked away. When rumors started, she asked for facts. And when somebody was struggling, she helped instead of talking. And slowly, the same neighborhood that once avoided her began trusting her. Even Emeka noticed. One evening, he sat beside her. "You've changed," Nkechi smiled. "I know. What happened?" She laughed softly. "A very expensive lesson." Years later, whenever the children asked about gossip, she would smile and say, "Be careful with your mouth, oh, because words, once they leave it, they never come back." And somewhere in Ajegunle, on a quiet evening, people still claimed they sometimes saw an old woman dressed in white beneath the almond tree, watching, smiling, and waiting for the next person who refused to mind their own business. Besties, the moral of this story is simple. Not every story you hear belongs to you. Not every secret you discover needs to be shared. Gossip may feel harmless for a moment, but careless words can destroy trust, friendship, opportunities, and even lives. Before you speak, ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Because the strongest person is not the one who talks the most. The strongest person is actually the one who knows when to keep quiet. Thank you so much for staying till the end, besties. My voice was kind hoarse because I'm having flu, but I hope you enjoyed the story. Hit the like button, comment down your thoughts about this story. I'm always here to read and learn from your comments. So make sure you comment your thoughts about this story. And see you in my next story, guys. Bye.